Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein has reached an agreement with Attorney General William Barr to stay on at the Justice Department for, quote, a little while longer. Rosenstein, who planned to step down in mid-March, is still the main liaison between the department and special counsel Robert Mueller, but it's Barr who has had main oversight of the probe since his confirmation. Joining me now is Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch. Good to see you, Tom. So isn't it about time for Rosenstein to move on?
Look, it seems to me that Mueller is still running the Justice Department. The Attorney General has got to take back control of his Justice Department. Rod Rosenstein and Mueller have been working closely together on this abusive investigation targeting President Trump. Rosenstein is responsible for obstruction of congressional investigations, covering up every which way he can, details about the abuses of the Justice Department and the FBI in targeting President Trump and others. And it's just remarkable to me that the Attorney General continues to have him in place in this position of power. He's effectively running the Justice Department as number two. That's what the DAG does. And by outsourcing control of the Justice Department to Rod Rosenstein, Mr. Barr is sending a signal that it's business as usual at the deep state.
How long do you think he'll be there? I mean, it can't go on that much longer, can it?
Well, I think they've nominated someone to take over his slot. Yeah. So, you know, but it could be 4, 5, 6 months before that position's filled. So he could continue to, as you highlight at the beginning of the segment, effectively collaborate with Mr. Mueller as he continues this presidential harassment campaign.
Well, meanwhile, we're learning a little bit more about the deep state and the witch hunt through the Michael Cohen revelations. The search warrant was released. There's so much of it is redacted. Have you tried reading in between the redactions to try to come to some conclusion about it?
You know, I think the big takeaway of this is that you had the Mueller operation behind the abusive effort to impede on the president's attorney-client relationship with Michael Cohen. They immediately began dismantling that expectation of privacy that clients have for communications with their attorneys almost immediately upon his coming into office, Mr. Mueller. And then they outsourced it to the Southern District of New York later, but they weren't really fooling anyone because they were obviously operating as avatars for Mueller in raiding Cohen in that really unusual raid of an attorney. You know, the president's attorney was subject to investigation. I don't think they had good reason to target him other than the fact he was the president's attorney. And again, Mueller behind an audacious attack on the president. You know, I tell you, the Attorney General has got to figure out what's going on there. And if I were him, I'd freeze the whole operation till he figures out what's up and down in terms of all the peculiar activities and corruption involved in the operation, including Strzok Page, the hiring, the firing, the FISA warrants. Why would he allow that investigation to go forward, given all the concerns about abuse of the Justice Department and the FBI?
Well, and the concerns now are boiling over in the American public. I mean, it's not, you don't have to be a fervent Trump supporter in order to believe it's a witch hunt. Now the majority of Americans do. They got the message. They understand it. I mean, there is enough evidence and there's enough push, I think, from the public itself to justify ending this thing, no?
I agree. You know, the Justice Department was in court today arguing that states attorney, Maryland and other states had no business harassing the president on this emoluments clause absurd litigation.
Yeah.
Yet the Justice Department seems to take the position they have a right to harass the president. And they can investigate him any way they want. And this Mueller report is being used as a way to further abuse the president, hanging it over him. And just causing worry and consternation about the operation of our government. Again, this is the Justice Department. The president, under our Constitution, controls the Justice Department, yet the Justice Department is operating as if it's a fourth branch of government. And the Attorney General, I think, needs to fix that.
Well, despite all of this, despite all the roadblocks to success, the president continues to chalk up victories, the most recent with the Supreme Court over immigration. It was a close decision. It was 5-4. But we read some comments by Justice Thomas just moments ago. What do you think of this decision?
Well, it's a big victory for the rule of law. It's a case that goes back to the Obama administration, so this wasn't even a Trump administration policy. Look, the left is attacking our efforts to uphold the rule of law on immigration by affording illegal aliens rights they're not due under our Constitution. And in this case, they wanted aliens who were released and not picked up immediately by ICE, wanted to give them the ability, despite having committed crimes for which they had been jailed otherwise, to be out free on the streets. And the court said, no, the law doesn't allow that. And, you know, just because ICE gets around later to arresting someone who ought to be detained doesn't mean they give up their rights to detain them. And it's a common sense decision, but the closeness shows that there's this legal effort underway to undermine the rule of law on immigration. And I tell you, you know, a further challenge to this law may succeed with the Supreme Court, and again, it will be just open borders mania as a result.
Well, and as I said, I was disappointed. It was as close. It was a win, but it shouldn't have been a 5-4 decision. And yet there you go. Tom Fitton, great to see you, my friend. Thank you very much for being here.